Listen, man. Listen, man. Listen, man. Listen. We talking practice.
Hey, it's Matthew Harvey here with the 12 o'clock siren coming at you from the southeast corner of the Leonard Downtown Square. On my left hand is James Hartley.
Glad to be back, everybody, and on my left hand is Jason Puller.
Welcome back, Leonard folk.
Howdy, folks. Speaking of Leonard folk,
We've got one.
we've got a Leonard folk catch
Who do
on
we
our
got?
hands here.
Yep.
A gentleman who knows quite a bit about this town, Mr. Steve Coker.
That's me, guys.
Yeah.
Great memories of this place. My memory has kept me in trouble for many years. Many years, gentlemen. What I'm going to tell you is the truth, but there's a whole lot of truth I'm not going to tell you.
I like that. You came out swinging.
How about that? Yeah.
He's ready to go.
Poet and didn't know it.
Is this your first podcast?
Yeah.
No, I'm a veteran, man.
He was on Rogan.
You're talking to an aviator here, so you know how cool we are on the mic up there, when we're doing PAs and stuff. So it's just like doing a PA.
Yep. So you're a fly
Did that
boy.
for 31 years, huh?
Okay.
31 years.
Can you give us a couple things you might say into your headset if you were flying?
Oh, it's the same thing. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Southwest 36. We're about 20 minutes from touchdown, and we got a beautiful night at Dallas Love Field, 72 degrees, winds are out south at about 10 miles an hour. Right. Sure appreciate y'all flying Southwest this evening, and have a nice evening. Drive carefully. Come back and see us just as soon as you can. How's that sound?
Wow.
If I close my eyes, I can taste the bourbon.
Oh, yeah.
I think we can end the show right there.
Yeah.
Bloody Mary.
I think I peaked out already. What can I say?
You have any of those free drink coupons?
Absolutely. You got a
you bring those
billfold
with you?
full of them.
Oh,
Billfold
man.
full of them. I always carry those things, man.
Well, welcome. Thank you for being here kind of last minute.
Proud to be here.
Asked you a couple days ago to be on the show, and you said yes.
Absolutely.
6:30 on a Wednesday night, so I appreciate it.
There's no better place to be right here, Leonard, Texas. Proud to be. I'm not a BIL. I'm a BID, but I go back to about age 6 around here.
Yeah,
I
tell
got
us
some
your history with the town.
Fantastic memories. Born in Dallas, and we lived like everybody else did down there. Mom and dad, dad worked, mom didn't, and none of ours did on the street. And, the brick house with the 3 bedrooms.
2.5 children.
That's 3, yeah, to be exact. 2 boys and a girl, and that was pretty much standard on the street. We all got along. And
What part of Dallas?
It's at the intersection of Abrams Road and Northwest Highway, which at that time, Loop 12 was the outermost loop in Dallas.
Well,
it was
that's
all
changed.
country north of Loop 12. I could tell you stories, but
I think a lot of us have seen that photo on Facebook or Instagram of the old Metroplex looking north.
Absolutely
at that spot.
But that's getting into Dallas. How blessed I was to grow up in and attend the first 7 years of school right there, a couple of blocks from the house. Everybody went to the same school. Everybody knew everybody. My dad, bless his heart, for some reason he just had to have some land. And I don't know where he got that. I know his granddad had some land down in Van Zandt County. And I think his granddad was sort of kind of maybe his idol or mentor or whatever. And but his dad did not. He was a farmer, an old cotton farmer, but sharecropper. And those guys really had it tough during the 30s. Dad had very little to say good about his growing up because everybody was so poor if you didn't own your land. So anyway, most people would on weekends go out to Six Flags and do the Dallas Cowboys and stuff like that as a family. And now we did that, but I mean it was they would throw us in the back of a station wagon and we'd go all over northeast Texas. Dad was from Van Zandt or Henderson County, Maybank, and Mother was from Farmersville and Collin County. And so they sort of we'd go east one weekend, then we'd go north one weekend, then northeast, and all these little towns, and we'd look at land that was for sale. And his criteria was, I want 100 acres of land, and I want 1 hour from Dallas, exactly 1 hour. And I want paved roads. I'm not going to fight the dirt roads in the cleats or anything like that.
Sure.
So land was available all over the place, but that it didn't meet his criteria.
Right.
And you'd find a beautiful ranch that he wanted, but there was dirt roads, and he worked in Dallas, and he said, I'm not, I can't fight this mud, so I'm not going to do it every day. So anyway, somehow, some way, we ended up, he bought 120 acres 2 miles east of Leonard, and I think it was $100 an acre or something like that. It was very unimproved. It was very rough. It needed a lot of work done on it, but it met the criteria that I just mentioned there. And I do remember every time that we looked at a piece of property, and there were so many that, that sort of kind of runs together, but we would take a spin around the town.
Bless you.
And I do remember going around Leonard in '62, and the old courthouse, the old 2-story, was in the center of the square. And it was kind of abandoned and haunted looking. The windows were broken out. It had one more year, and then they were going to tear it down and replace it with a 1-story. And then we made the block, and I remember going by the big 3-story high school and how huge that thing looked sitting out there by itself, and by the football stadium, and there was it was out there by itself. No nursing home. The rest home wasn't there. You made the corner onto the highway, and there was a couple of service stations, a couple of cafes, and that was it.
Right.
But I do remember that very well. So anyway, he purchased this 120 acres, and there's a guy named Ed Norris that he bought it from that had a lot of land around here, and he was really interested in getting young guys hooked up with property. And
is this the property that was out by Kenneth Gurney and out there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The S turn out there.
Yeah.
On the old Jefferson Road, FM 272. The Jefferson Highway. But anyway, this Ed Norris guy said, Vernon, he said, you've been in the city a while. Things have changed. He said, I tell you what, he said, I'm going to let you go out there for a year. And you come back in a year, and if you want it, we'll close. But just consider it yours for a year. Do whatever you want to do.
Can we get some of that?
Wow.
Can you? I mean, that's how this
Different
guy.
times.
That's how good people there were around this place. Right. I mean, Ed Norris was just that type of man. And so anyway, Dad said, "Man, I can't turn that down." No. So ananyway, we went out.
1962.
And he started, and we went out and started improving out there. And I was just amazed at what he could do. He knew enough to get it done. And in '63, he and Mom closed on that. And we spent weekends up here and summers, and from '63 to '69. And we could not wait when Friday rolled around. Couldn't wait to get in that pickup. Mom and Dad and my sister in the front, my brother and I sitting in the back of a pickup for 60 miles, 1 hour. You could do that back then, Nobody cared. The dog was back there, and we waved at everybody, and the trucks blew the horns and stuff, and it was the same highway, but it just wasn't near as congested as it is now. You could. It's just the amount of traffic wouldn't allow you to do that in any way, fashion, or form. Plus, it's illegal. Anyway, couldn't wait to get up here, and we dreaded Sunday nights because we had to go back. My brother and I, we were the type that we really needed the confinement of the city. It really is. You don't know how confining it is till you get up here and 120 acres, they turned you loose.
Oh, yeah.
And Mom and Dad were pretty cool. They let us run the tractors, stuff like that. Way too small to be doing that. Totally unsafe.
I think we all grew up that way.
Yeah,
well.
I mean, they just turned us loose, and it was unbelievable. Gave us some check. We rode, of course, in Dad and Granddad's lap. His dad was still living. He brought him up here to help him out and do a lot of things, which was really good. Those two worked together, and I got to work with my granddad. And if we all lived in the city, I don't know what we'd have done. Life would have been totally different. But anyway, my earliest memories of this place are just fantastic, and the people, the neighbors and stuff that we had out there were still there when we moved up in '69, and they came up one day, and Mom and Dad said, "What if we were to sell this house and just come up?" We called it the farm, and it was the only ranch out there, guys. Leonard was cotton. It was a cotton economy around here till '74. That was it.
Cotton was king.
Cotton economy. That's all we had. And we were one of the few that had just cows. And we were surrounded by cotton on all sides. And so anyway, they said, what if we were
I
to
think that's an Alabama song.
yeah, well, what if we were to sell the
That's high cotton.
sell the
Yeah. Sorry.
not to worry, man. What if we were to sell this house and then build on the farm? And we three lit up and said, hey, let's go for it. So anyway, I
And
did.
you're how old? What is that? 9, 10 years?
I was I had finished 7th grade at Rogers
okay.
Elementary, so it was time to go to Franklin Hillcrest in Dallas, and
So you were 13 or so at this
I
time.
was 13. So I entered Leonard schools in the 8th grade, and the big 3-story had grades 7 through 12. 7 and 8 were junior high, and then the rest were high school. But we were all in the same building. The 7th and 8th grade, you stayed in your homeroom, and the teachers moved around. And then when you went to where you're a freshman, you moved around.
Walk us through this high school. Were you there before it burnt? Obviously before it burned down, but during and after.
Man, I mean, what my parents. I just cannot tell you how wonderful it was, and how grateful I am. The best decision they ever made was leaving Dallas and coming up here.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great thing it is to have gone to elementary school in the city, or gone to a city school and then gone to a country school and finish up. And I pity anybody who didn't get to see both of those. But anyway, it certainly, if I could say one thing educationally, the most benefit I had educationally would be that.
Yeah.
The city the city elementary, and then the junior high and high here in a small country school.
You may have said this, and I may have missed it, but what did your father do for, what was his profession?
Dad was had a service station garage. He was a World War II guy, and when he got out of World War II, he said, "I'll never work for another man as long as I live."
No.
And he meant it, and he didn't. And it might have been a service station, but he was the boss.
Sure.
And he started out, one of those little hut things, and I think he actually, had a couple of pumps, a one-man deal out on Fort Worth Avenue out west of Dallas. Yeah. And then he got in with a cousin's husband or something in right there next to SMU during the 40s, and then got out on his own. And he actually had, back then it was a Humble. It was about 2 or 3 blocks from where we lived there in Dallas.
Sure.
And it was the neighborhood gas station. Right. Everybody knew my dad. Everybody associated my brother and my sister and I with Vernon Coker's Humble.
Right.
And you guys get free gas, questions like that when you're a kid. But anyway, there was several other service stations up there at the intersection of Abrams and Northwest, but they were after the highway business.
Sure.
Dad wanted the neighborhood, and he did real well. He kind of made fun of himself. Fill-in station, man. Anybody can do that. But he stayed with it for 35 years and ended up with Mobile at Preston and Mockingbird, which was the absolute ultimate. And,
that's the tollway now, right?
No, Preston and Mockingbird.
East of the
No, it's
tollway.
5400 Preston. It's Wells Fargo Bank now is right there. But he ended up there his last 12 years, and that was a gold mine. So we were, I'd say, average until that last 10 or 12 years that he was over there, and he retired very comfortably to his farm or his ranch out here east of town.
Noticed an uptick in the quality of the Christmas gifts and whatnot about that point.
It was Highland Park, and it was totally different than dealing with any other clientele in the Dallas area.
Still that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, not only did I have 120 acres of pasture land to do whatever I wanted to do, I went to work with my dad. And, man, I mean, that was absolutely unbelievable. Leaving here, we would get up and go before traffic. And then I got to work on cars, man. I mean, back then, we guys, all we wanted to do was work on cars and trucks. And I got to go down there and get my hands dirty and get in stuff and learn mechanically how to do things. And about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he goes, "Boy, let's go." So we beat the traffic home. And then when I got out here, I'd get on the tractor and probably do something until it was time to come in.
Sure.
So I had the best of all the worlds, Dallas, Texas, and Leonard, Texas. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that, guys. It really doesn't.
Well, what was your first day of 8th grade like?
Well, there was probably 100 students at Rogers.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Your first day here. I thought it was 8th grade.
It was.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, there was 100 students in Rogers at Dallas, and it divided up into 4 sections, so it's about 25 kids per section. So there might be somebody in your class that you never had a class with.
Right.
I've run across that. Hey, I was in your class. And it's like, well, I never had any classes with you. And then we come up here, and it's one class of 8th graders. There's 25 of us, 25 or 30. So a heck of a contrast. But
Can you remember some of those names?
That were in my class?
Yeah.
I remember just about all of them.
Okay.
Who was your running
You care
buddies
to...
there?
My running buddy, my best friend was Danny Davis. He's not here. I ran with Buddy Woodruff, Mike Mahan, David Vincent, Lee Pemberton, Russell Marshall, Robin Ross. The girls in my class was Becky Sutta, Susan Caldwell. Oh, man. Let's see.
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
Yeah, Melba Latham. Anyway, we were a very close class.
Yeah.
And we've had a reunion every 5 years, except it gets kind of dumb right around 40, 45. It's like 35, 40. But we're coming up on our 50th here.
Oh, wow.
And I believe 24. And so that's going to be a big one. So anyway, we're a close bunch. And most of us, we've lost 3 or 4. But I was blessed to be in that class. I really was. Anyway, the contrast was just incredible. I mean, coming from a city school to the country, but I've never met. I mean, everybody was so friendly, and you know, everybody just took us all riding, all 3 of us. And I tell you, what we really liked more than anything was riding the school bus. See, Mother either took us to school,
Simple
or we
things.
walked, which was 3 blocks or whatever. I mean, we were spoiled. I mean, we should have walked every day. I don't care what the weather was, but riding the school bus was just absolutely, because it was the circuit you took. You went all the way to Bailey, and then went all the way down here south of, way down south of Leonard, and the whole the bus route that I was on went east all the way to Bailey, all the way. I mean, it was a very long ride, which
I
saw
note
the countryside.
Can I note school buses for the recap? I've got a story I'd like to share.
Sure. Mark that.
Thanks.
I went to there was I guess the best experience that the learning experience I had around here was I loved the tractors and the farm work and or the ranch work, and there was a neighbor by the name of Frank Crawford, long gone, but. Anyway, he had this garage right over next door over here, the building over here to the east, and it used to be a Ford dealership. He was a Ford dealer, and his son ran the garage. But anyway, that was his hangout or whatever, and he always checked in there before he went out to his farm.
Bill's dad?
Bill's dad.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, he told my dad, he said, you know, these boys are getting pretty good on the tractors. You know, I sure need some help over here sometime. So anyway, I went over and I said, Mr. Crawford, I sure would like a job. You know, my dad, he didn't pay us anything, but that's just the way.
Yeah, he did. Room and
that's just
board.
the
Room
way
and board.
That's the way it was. You know, I didn't ask him for anything, but we were expected to work and to pay for. We were getting to the age that we were expected.
Needed some gas money.
Yeah, I mean, our spending money, we were expected to make it.
And what age was that?
13.
Okay.
So I asked.
Let's mark that.
Yeah.
I asked Mr. Crawford, and he said, "Yeah, come on Saturday when you get out of school, and I'll give you a job cutting cotton stalks." So anyway, he turned me loose on a mower and a 2-row mower and a tractor, and I mowed all his cotton stalks that year. So the cotton crop was done, and in the next year, it was an incredible cotton year, and we started stripping cotton, and I mean I could go on forever about this, but I mean these fields around here were just, I mean, it was just unbelievable. It was just white as far as you could see. It was a record year. So what we would do is Mr. Crawford would fill his trailers up. Well, first of all, we went over here in the back of the shop and rebuilt all the cotton trailers. And he had a couple of broken down ones out there that were spares. So we put new wood, new chicken wire and stuff like that. And so we needed every trailer that we could find and then some. And we would fill Mr. Crawford's trailers and take them to the gin. And then
Where was the gin?
the gin was down here north. We were down to one gin was the problem around here on a bumper crop year. The Davises had the gin. And we would fill his trailers, take them to the gin, And then it's like, what are we going to do now? Because there were so many trailers down there that it might be a couple of days before you saw them again, even though you had more to do. There was the cotton was that much.
Wow.
So anyway, what we would do is take the stripper, he, myself on the tractor, and the stripper, and we would go to another farmer who had trailers that were empty, and then we'd fill his trailers, and then we'd come back when ours emptied, his emptied, and then we'd start back at the place. So I went north of town, south of town, east of town, west of town, stripping cotton.
Wow.
And it was an orchestrated effort amongst all these farmers to get this done, because there's no sense in, we all knew that there was too much cotton around here and not enough gin.
Yeah.
And they were working 24/7 down there. And so it was an orchestrated effort to coordinate here and there, whatever, so that all trailers were full, and that as soon as one of them got empty down there, that bang, it was back in the field. And it was choreography. It was unbelievable. I'd never heard of anybody get upset about anything. We all knew what we were dealing with, and what a fraternity it was. See, I'm one of the last ones around here to work cotton, and I don't care if it's mowing stalks or throwing it back in the trailer, which is what I was doing, or turning in or disking in the stalks or whatever. He did all the bedding and the planting and stuff like that because he was such a perfectionist. I would have messed that up.
Yeah.
I would have never done anything right to please that man, trust me, because he was such a perfectionist. His fields were manicured, and all of them around here were manicured. Nobody did any sloppy farming around
No
here.
half measures.
Oh, no. The fields were beautiful.
Sure.
These guys were proud. And anyway, these old farmers knew that you were out there. They knew, and I wasn't the only one. You know, a lot of these guys in my class, their dad's farm.
Sure.
You know, so they were out there doing this stuff too. And they were doing it for what? Free? I got $1 an hour, you know, so I was rich.
There you go.
But anyway, it was a nasty job, and I didn't think it was ever going to end, but we got through it. But you had entered the cotton fraternity around here. So I'm one of the last.
So describe one of your jobs. You said throwing stalks or.
Okay, I cut his stalks that first year, and then the next year what you had to do was throw the cotton back in the trailer. See, the stripper had a chute on it, and it would just drop the cotton off in the trailer in one spot. You had to take a pitchfork and put it back in the corners and then stand on it and pack it down.
Sure.
Gotcha. This
Tell
is
you
it, like
something.
inside the hopper, I guess?
Inside the trailer.
Okay.
Inside each trailer held a bale.
Okay.
And you'd have to pack that thing down and walk it down, and as you went through the field. So, I mean, it was pitchforking. It was tough. It really was. And I was a little guy, you know, and it was all I could do.
Sure.
But anyway, I wasn't the only one out there. That was just throwing back cotton. And
Luckily,
you know,
it was cotton. That's pretty lightweight, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
but
you got
it's
that
got
going for you.
burrs and stuff on
Yeah.
it. You know, see, but it's not. It hadn't been through the seed and the burrs and
Yeah.
the bowls and everything else are on there. So it's you're moving some stuff. It's not like moving dirt or
Probably
anything.
gets
but-
up under your jeans and stuff, too.
Oh man, it's filthy. But see, usually what you'd see around here is the guys, the farmer would be on the tractor stripping, and then the wives would be back there. The farmers' wives would be back there throwing back. So anyway, that got the wives out of the trailer to do what women did. But anyway, I didn't think we'd ever get it done, but we did. But I tell you what, I had a kind of a free pass after that around this town. If you're working and you're working cotton around here, everybody knew it.
Sure.
And now I didn't get by with everything at school, and there was a couple of things I did around here that my parents knew before I did it. I'll tell you what, them old guys, them old cotton farmers, they knew who was out there.
Sure.
And they knew who you were, and they knew who was working
Like
around
the star quarterback?
They knew who was working around this town.
Well-
and who wasn't. Trust me,
That was a time when working meant something.
it did.
You know.
Mr. Crawford's shop was a gathering place for the farmers. It was one of them deals where he'd go, well, okay, meet me at the shop at 7 tomorrow. And we'd start out over here, and I'd come over here. No coffee or anything, but the old farmers would be standing around. There was a stove out in the middle of that. Of course, we didn't have it on, but that was just the gathering place.
Sure,
There was
it's the water cooler.
Some old chairs around there, and a couple of old, I believe he had an old truck seat out there, you know, he'd taken out of a truck. That said, no couch or nothing like that, just old derelict chairs. Anyway, that's where the farmers met. And they just, you know, it was busy. I mean, 10 to 15 minutes of checking in with each other and giving each other a little grief, this and there, whatever, just fraternity talk, and then everybody went their way.
Sure.
So anyway, here I end up back out. Mr. Crawford had the farm north of us. I come up to the shop, maybe at 7. So at 7:30, we're back out there. And then we get going. It's like, Mr. Crawford, I could have slept 30 more minet's.
Yeah.
But he wanted me up there with those guys.
Sure.
He really did.
As a lesson in life is what that was.
Lesson in life, and I'm eternally grateful for that man. And it was an experience I wouldn't take for. If you wanted to work around here, trust me, you could work. Everybody knew you were doing it, and that's another good thing about this place.
How long did you do that for?
I did it until
a week. No.
Well, I tell you what,
and that was on August 23rd.
Yeah, the 69 crop, the 70 crop, the 71, 72, 73.
Oh, so you got after it.
Yeah. I worked out there about 4 years. And I still think I was making $1 an hour at the end of the 4 years. He was letting me do just about everything except the bedding and planning, which he was. That was his thing.
I'm curious to know what a man of your age back in those days would have been spending all that money on.
Yeah.
Were you rat holing it, or were you?
Pretty much, you couldn't spend $1 an hour around here. I mean, you couldn't. I mean, there was just not that much trouble you could get into.
Times have changed.
You coming down to the square and buying sodas or what?
That you put that towards your first vehicle, or?
Yeah. I was a saver.
Yeah.
I know where you guys are going. Did we go buy a beer? Yeah, we did.
I was more so looking to see what your first vehicle was.
I just want to know if
58
Leonard...
Chevrolet pickup.
There you go.
Okay. Sure did. Bought it from Robert Cheney out of Bonham, but and it lasted me almost through high school. And let's talk about the 58 Chevy. My friend Dennis Jones. We lost him a couple of years ago. It was a great friend of mine. But anyway, we boys would, with this 58, we would. I'd blow up motor or something like that. It was pretty easy to do, and we would find a motor and let's work in there, and ask a few questions, and if you do this, whatever, and we'd change motors and change transmissions just to see if they would work.
Oh man,
I kid you not. That's what we did. And so anyway, this 58, I don't know how many times that we changed the engine and changed the transmission in this thing, and boy, we learned something every time. I mean, it was one of those deals, and we always managed to make the thing work somehow, some way. And it wasn't the only experimental automobile we had out there. We worked on quite a few of them. That's just one of the things. Another thing that we did on weekends. I showed cows. That I was big into ag and stuff. Wasn't big enough to do sports.
Now, was W.C. Griffith part of the program back then?
Oh yeah, I could talk about Griff all day long. What an inspiration!
Well, you can go ahead right now. This is your chance.
Yeah,
he's near and dear to our hearts.
I got something. Yeah, let's come back to Griff, or I'll lose. I'm 63. Sure. I'll lose my train. But anyway, you asked how did I farm? Okay, my dad was in the Air Force. Was in World War II. Was around airplanes. He wasn't a pilot. He was an enlisted guy, but he was around inside Pantini and Guam, C-54 operations over there. And I noticed that when my dad got around airplanes, he made his living in automobiles. When we got around airplanes, he just became a different man, so, for some reason. And I picked up on this. And it was pretty clear from the beginning that either my brother and I, one of us is going to fly, one of us is going to aviate. I mean, that's just all there was to it. So I'll never forget one morning, you know how you, for some reason I slept in and there was a crop duster dusting cotton right outside the window, my bedroom window. I mean, within 100 feet of Bill McBroom's cotton over there.
Good luck sleeping in.
Yeah. He was buzzing around over there. And so I woke up, and you know how, teenage
the
boys.
Noise of the pesticides.
Teenage boys, how you wake up out of one of those dreams, that we had back then. Anyway. I said, I think I might like to do that. I don't want to crop dust, but I think I might want to fly.
Sure.
So I grabbed my dad's Sherman Democrat, and it said, learn to fly McKean Aviation, had a number on there, Denison, Texas. So
how old were you?
17.
Okay.
Or 16. So anyway, I called this number, and the guy said, well, come on up. So anyway, I came on up, and we looked around the hangar and airplanes. He introduced himself, and he said, I want you to come back tomorrow with your dad. I need to have a talk with your dad, or as soon as you get him up here.
Sure. So
anyway, Dad, bless his heart, after a trip to Dallas, we jumped up there and went up there one evening or whatever, and that what's another 2 hours in the car, type
Sure.
thing. So, but he rode up there with me, and
Of course, with your dad's love of airplanes, this probably what he was a supporter of it.
yeah, he sat over. This is cool. Let's go.
Yeah.
So anyway, Mr. McKeon was there, and they chatted, and what that was, I didn't understand. But it's like, I don't do lawsuits around here. You know what I'm saying? I've got a simple operation here.
Sure.
And so they didn't
Man
need to
talk.
say. They just looked at each other and made a few words, whatever. And then Bill said, "I want you to come back up. Your instructor will be here tomorrow." So anyway, I went back up there, and this guy named David Morrow, who should be finished at American right about now. He was a U.S. Air guy. I don't know if your dad ever ran across him. It's such a big company. But anyway, David introduced himself, and we walked around a Cessna 150, and he said, "Get in," and that's about how it was.
Right.
And so off we went, and of course I was hooked. We had an ag co-op program. Back to W.C. Griffith.
There we go.
Ag co-op, and Dennis Jones went to work for Mike Gaddis, the vet, and I'm trying to think. Most of the guys went and worked for their dads, but
We learned that Griff had some sort of connection with Eugene and the pharmacy. They had a work program set up.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
That's right, a co-op.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was
A
called
co-op, yeah.
Let me tell you guys, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon,
Tell us about it.
I learned all I was going to learn at Leonard High
Of
School.
course.
Trust me, I was not a good student. My class, we were pretty crazy. And I was right in the middle of all of it. But anyway, about 2 o'clock, I was done. So they wanted somebody to work at the bank. And my mom already worked there as a bookkeeper. So anyway, I went, okay. And so I went over there, and they said, well, just try that. And I said, look, I like to work on a farm. I like to
I like
fly
money.
planes.
I have a little money.
I want to be outside.
I have
I'm
a
just
jar.
an outside guy. So anyway, I came in, and here's your job. Your co-op job is janitor. Hello. Yeah. All right. As soon as
Empty these wastebaskets.
when the school
Picking the pennies out of the urinals.
As soon as you get out of class, come in here and clean this building. Guys, back then, those old guys. I talked about Mr. Crawford and the guys in the overalls and the boots and whatever coming in there. Well, they also went over to the bank and flirted with the tellers.
Sure.
I mean, I don't care if they didn't need anything.
Yeah.
I can tell you those ladies, but anyway, they tracked in everything in the world. And I mean, you walk over there now and it's all clean, but at the end of the day, back in the 70s, there was cow manure, there was mud, there was rocks, there was dirt, you
Sure.
name it, all over that floor. I mean, it was a nasty building at the end of the day. So anyway,
Is this the bank building on the northwest?
yeah, it's still the same building.
Okay.
Same building. It's been rearranged.
Sure.
I could draw you the floor plan of what it was, exactly what it was like before they really changed it up. So anyway, that was my job. And unfortunately, I had to wait till everybody left. I got at 2, the bank closed at 3, and then the ladies had to balance out. So it's like 4 or 5 o'clock before they ever got out.
That's
It's
brutal.
like, what's the janitor going to do? How many times can you clean the restrooms?
Polish the brass.
Yeah. So I had to wait till everybody was gone, and then what they started. Well, okay, let's go back here and manually file checks. So, you talk about tedious is putting everyone's check in the exact. I mean, all this stuff was done manually back then.
Sure.
Everything. So that was the that's where you started in bookkeeping is filing checks. And so I did that, and I got all that done, this and that. Well, we'll try you learn how to post to people's accounts and stuff. Well, it's a machine and everything, and then the proof machine. So anyway, I got to doing that, and then I did that until everybody left. Then I cleaned the building,
Yeah.
type thing. Locked the doors, last one out. So anyway, I did that. The problem is, the deal with that is $1 an hour is what Mr. Crawford paid me. That paid back then, guys. I kid you not. I'm thinking that paid somewhere around $5 an hour.
Oh, no.
Yes, sir.
That's
And I was
professional
working for
level.
Mr. Rob Gaddis was president. Danny Jackson was vice president. These guys were very good to me. And Mr. Gaddis told me the first day, he said, Steve, he said, there's been many a corporate CEO that started out as a janitor. I just want you to know that. And I got to go around with those guys and do some things like repossess some cars and stuff like that. That was pretty neat. That was interesting.
That's cool.
But mainly I was around a bunch of women, and I was working inside, and that just wasn't me.
Sure.
And I'm sure, and Danny said, look, I'll take you all the way through college. He said, you got a way with numbers. I mean, and I really didn't. But anyway, the book.
You just didn't mess up.
Yeah, attention to details.
Sure,
What it amounted to.
sure,
It's
yeah.
attention to detail. I could do that. I could hack that. I always could. And so anyway, it was. I'll take you all the way through college, dude. And, I mean, we need somebody. We want to home grow somebody.
Sure.
Problem is, they had the wrong guy. I was flying airplanes. I was hooked on it, and
Sure.
the last thing I wanted to do was be in a desk inside a building the rest of my life. I just couldn't do it. So anyway, I did that through high school, and then when I graduated high school, I got into the Air Force Reserve. The recruiter came up to the 3-story building, the Air Force guy, and 2 of my guys signed up, active duty, and this guy was really thought I was going to do it, and I said, I think I want to be in the reserve. And he goes, "What? Why would you want to be in the reserve?" I mean,
Because I'm smart.
yeah, why would you want to do that? I got all your college. I've got all your retirement. You can retire in 20 years, this and that or whatever. And I went, I just don't want to see the world. I like Texas. I like Leonard. I like Dallas. And I just want to stay local. I really do. Now, if there's a war going on somewhere, yeah, I want to be there.
Sure.
But I want to train and I want to work here. I do not want to leave here, plain and simple.
Right.
So the Air National Guard or the Air Force Reserve, due to that, was exactly what I needed.
Absolutely.
So he said, well, I'll hook you up with a reserve recruiter. Now, back to Eugene Kagans. He was, during my first memories of him, he was a guardsman or something. Because
He was
I
in the
remember,
Guard, yeah.
I remember Kiwanis going up there with my dad, and Gene would be in his uniform fixing to go do his drill.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that was neat. I thought Gene was a pharmacist for the Army, and
Well,
that's how he
that's
got
what
his
we
training.
guessed.
Yeah.
No, he was a chaplain's assistant.
That's
See,
right.
I thought,
Yep.
and I even Keith Kirkland, my class, even said that that's how Gene got his training to be a pharmacist. That's not true.
That's not.
It's not. So anyway, I
You
thought
heard it here first.
I
Throw
thought
back
that
to
was
episode
Second,
1.
yeah, I thought that was neat that Gene and Becky, when they came here, they were the imported teenagers. I mean, they got involved at the church. They got involved with the students. They were just children.
Sure.
And both of them very attractive and everything. And they were just these huge people.
Sure.
And plus, this guy was a pharmacist. He's a beautiful wife, and so he was one of those guys we really looked up to.
Right.
And so anyway, I thought that was really neat that this reserve thing. So I went
cool.
and talked to those guys, and it was one of those deals where I want to fly. And he said, well, you got a college degree? I said, no, I'll get one. Is that what I need? And he goes, yeah. So he said, what I would do if I were you, he said, looking at your scores here, you're mechanically inclined, from working for my dad and for Mr. Crawford.
Sure.
Why don't I let you send you to basic training in crew chief school, and then you work on the airplanes and do your drills. I'm sorry, I can't help you with college. I mean, Dad always said your college is my responsibility.
Sure.
Period. That's just the way he was. Nobody was going to pay our college except him. And anyway, they said you can work on planes and then go to college at the same time, and then when you graduate, you apply for officer school and pilot training. You'll know the airplane, you'll know the pilots.
Right.
That your foot's already in the door.
Yeah, go hang out with the ops group a little bit.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that's exactly what I did, and it worked. And when I got in, the talking to the active recruiter and everything, why would you want to be a reservist, whatever. Then when I got in reserve, it's like, who told you about the greatest thing in the whole world? I'm
right.
serious. I went from that to that.
Yeah.
There was when you go through basic training, the active duty guys are training you. They hated reservists.
Of course.
They absolutely despised
It's called
us.
jealousy.
Yeah, they couldn't stand us. So that was tougher. When I went back to officer school, I went to Southeastern Oklahoma. They had the aviation degree up there. I got that. I loved that school. Another 1 hour from Leonard. That's fine. I came home a lot of weekends, not every weekend.
Sure.
Because I wanted to help my dad. I needed some spending money. Plus, I did my drills and stuff, and they paid 4 pay periods per drill, and I couldn't spend that up there. I mean, I really, honest to goodness, the money was just unreal. So anyway, I got the degree. Went in and talked to the boss and told him what I wanted to do, and got to go to officer school and pilot school. I was in my officer school OTS down at San Antonio. I was the only reservist and the only one going to pilot training. So I was despised there.
Of course.
And I made it. And pilot training, you've already got your assignment.
Yeah, you get to pick your airframe.
F-105 to Carswell was the best assignment in the whole world. And so there was a lot of jealousy there. But I made it through that somehow, some way. I could tell that I was hated, but what's new,
Right.
But
Where was your pilot training at?
Lubbock, Reese Air Force Base.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did flew there. I was a crew chief 3.5 years and flew whatever the remaining years as a pilot. Retired at 38. So got him at 18 and retired at 38.
So you got some time in the F4 too, right?
Yeah. Flew 105s, F4s, F-16s.
Oh, that F-16.
Yeah.
That's
a few
Does it
months,
go fast?
16 months in the 105 in the beginning, and then 16 months at the F-16 in the end. The rest of it was F4. I couldn't get away from the F4.
Sure.
I mean, it was just if you flew the Guard and Reserve during the years that I was in there, that's what you were going to fly. That's what you're going to work on. That was the airplane. The Thunder Chief was the one I worked on, so naturally I'm going to be if you worked on the thing and then flew it. And by the way, I am the only living person that did that in the Thunder Chief.
Right.
That actually crewed the airplane, went through crew chief school,
really?
hands-on, launching, recovering, changing parts, everything to pull in engines, and then the only one to fly the airplane. That
Really?
never
Wow.
happened to anywhere else. It happened to several F-100 guys, Guard F-100 guys, but I didn't know that until Facebook here recently on the Thunder Chief page. I was on the impression because one of my bosses said we had some guys come up through McConnell that way, crew chiefs, but it was the F-100.
Oh, wow.
And he didn't tell me that. So anyway, and I'm 63 years old, and I am the baby to fly that airplane.
Really?
Yeah.
You're
Everybody, and they're dropping like the guys who flew that thing Southeast Asia were losing them one a day.
Sure.
It's just unbelievable.
The 301st still has 16s over
Yeah.
there, but they're about to get rid of them. They're getting 35s or 22s. I can't remember.
Yeah, I keep hearing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be a sad day.
Yeah. And then, of course, F4 there in the middle and the 16, and then I retired at 38. I did. I was 28 when I went to work for Southwest, and then 38 when I retired from reserve. So I did both jobs for 10 years. Had no idea what I was doing to myself. A lot of guys do that. I mean, if you got a family, it ain't gonna work. It's you just meet yourself going and coming. Sure. And plus, to maintain sanity, I would still come up here and help my dad at least one day a week. I shot for a day a week, because I love coming up here and I love being around my parents and I love being around that ranch. And sometimes I didn't, might be once every 2 weeks before I get up here, but because things were so busy sometimes.
Sure.
But as time went on, I got to where I was spending more time here, and and then finally, when the day came that I could retire from reserve and just do Southwest, I was doing something like 3-on-4 off, so I could spend a couple of days out here.
Nice.
And they were really getting of age where they really need some help, and that was my thing. That's what I like to do is come up and work the cows and work on fences and work on tractors and stuff like that. So
Cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of WC earlier, can you describe his FFA program or him as a teacher? Or,
probably I heard
your
Danny
memories of him?
Jackson. I heard Danny Jackson said it best. He said, "I know of no man at Leonard High School that was more of an inspiration to boys than W.C. Griffith." And I'll have to agree with that. We had some
I believe he gave my dad his first job.
Yeah, can you
mighty
explain
good
how
teachers
he's
up there.
influential and what he did for guys?
Well, I tell you what, the Griff taught life. Griff taught us to be men. I was in there from 70 to 73, I believe. Do you do 3 years of ag? I think that last year you don't. It seems like 4 years, but I think it's just 3. But anyway, nobody knew where this Vietnam thing was going. I mean, nobody knew where it was going to end. And my bunch was the next to go. And Griff was a World War II hero. I mean, we're talking battlefield commission. They didn't give those away. And
No, he's got some great stories.
I never knew that. He didn't boast about, I got a battlefield commission, you know.
Yep.
That just wasn't Griff. But, boy, we sure heard about the landing at Salerno.
Yep.
And we sure heard about the Battle of Monte Cassino. We sure heard about getting on the ship and going to France and then liberating some of the POW camps. I mean, the concentration camps. You know, I mean, every day he just start to finish talk about his experience. And, yeah, we covered some ag, but mostly it was life.
Right.
And, man, I mean, my retention, like I said, my memory has kept me in trouble. My retention of what he said, some of the things that he said, is probably keener than anything else that I could, even through college. I
Can
mean,
you
it's just-
can you look back and think about one thing in particular that really stuck out to you that made an impression on you?
Well, it was, I guess, more than anything, it was the war talk, and it was, like I say, it was a tough time. It were like, you know, we were. Steve Henderson was back. You know, he got like part of his face and lost an eye over there, and Steve was around town. And if you needed to know, you needed a reminder of what's going on, just go look at Steve.
Right.
And
Who's
you know,
that? Steve whom?
Steve Henderson was his name.
Okay.
He was a medic over there and went out to get somebody off the battlefield, and he took one in the shoulder and one right up in here or whatever, and it blew his right eye out, and he was supposed to die, but he made it. But anyway, that was mainly Griff talking about, and here's what he'd say, you know, and I know this isn't PC or anything, but he said, guys, he said, there's some nasty things we got to take care of for the girls.
Right.
You know, that's he might not have used those words, but it's like, you know, there's some things that we've got to do as men that has got to be done.
Yeah.
You know, plain and simple. Now, I don't know any other way to put that.
Oh yeah.
And he was, he had a way of getting the point across to him.
He told me a story about one time they were pinned down and he hadn't eaten all day and he was laying kind of on a hill and he reached down and pulled out one of his rations and he got his can opener and he opened it and that sunlight reflected off the can and a sniper shot it out of his hand.
Goodness.
Really?
I mean, that close.
I never heard that one,
Yeah.
but anyway, just I can't say what an experience that was to have Griff, and I went to see him as often as I possibly could. Not near enough, but I did go see him during one of his final days over there at Cosper, and he knew me, and you know, he said, I got a little job for you to do. See that tree out there? It needs to be pruned. You know?
Yes, sir.
It's just, Griff was just that way. You know, he always had something for us to do. He was, his boys, and that's what he said, you know, I have dedicated my life to boys.
Right.
And he did. He honestly did. What a role model. He said, I don't want any swearing, and I don't want any drinking.
Yes, sir.
So what did we do? Go to the ag shop and smoke cigarettes. You know? He didn't say we couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I remember the picture of him with his feet kicked up on a desk
Oh,
with
yeah.
a pipe.
I've got that picture.
Yeah.
Griff was the perfect guy for that because there was a gravitational pull towards
Yeah.
Griff. He
Yeah.
had a way with words, and he was kind of funny and charming
Yeah.
all the time. And
His grandson's one of our best friends, and we grew
Yeah.
up with his daughter and Miss McDonald and Gary Mack, of course.
he was just
Yeah, Betty
larger
was
than life.
A class ahead of me. Miss Griffith I was always over to the house. We went to the ag convention in 70, I believe, in San Antonio. Griff drove. Billy Davis, Danny Davis sat in the back, and Ronnie Watson over here, and I was the runt, so I got the hump. We went down there, checked into the Hemisphere had been to San Antonio in 68, so there was everything, the sidewalks, the motels, the convention center was brand new.
Sure.
I mean, clean, like, man, what a beautiful hot summer. And anyway, boys, as soon as y'all get checked in, we're going to go to I think we had an orientation that next morning, but he said as soon as you get signed in, we're going out to what's that hospital, the Army hospital?
It's Fort Sam Houston.
Fort
down there.
Sam, whatever that
Or
hospital
Wilford
is.
Hall down there,
No,
too.
Wilford Hall's at the Air Force. But whatever that big hospital is there at Fort Sam, and he said, we're going to see Steve Anderson. And Steve was just back. and we walked in that hospital, and there was guys 18, 19, 20 years old with arms and legs missing, open bay barracks. And, they just look at us, and we'd look at them and just awe, and they look at us and just like, hey, I'm alive,
Yeah.
And nurses tend to them, this and that or whatever, and some of them were burned. But what an experience that was.
Oh,
and,
imagine.
Griff walked in, and Steve said, hey, Griff, how are you, type thing, and had a bandage. But what an impression that was.
Sure.
Instead of, we might get to this. The first thing we did after we got checked in was we went and checked on Steve Henderson.
Sure.
I mean, that's what type man Griff was. Priorities.
Sure.
He taught us.
Right.
He taught us priorities in life. He really did. And what an inspiration he was. The Leonard, boy, we're talking. I think we're in excellent position. This town is. I wouldn't want to be a Van Alstyne or what is it, Prosper over there. We're kind of on the flank of the growth.
Sure.
And I think we're Leonard strategically is in a good position. It really is. The way this town's laid out, this square.
So you're on. Speaking of which, you're on the downtown, the Preservation League. Sorry, in the downtown committee as well.
Yeah, that DDAC Downtown Development Advisory Committee or whatever, and then the Preservation League. We're trying to maintain what we have, which guys like you are. Hey, thank you so much for what you've done, and what everybody's doing to try to maintain these old buildings. And then we're trying to, if anything else comes along down here, we've got some empty spaces. We're trying to standardize what comes in, meaning we won't new-looking old buildings, so to speak, and no more metal buildings or nothing, no more that look like a house over here like this library. So anyway, that's kind of what we're doing there.
Sure.
But you can put more cars on this square than you can McKinney.
I was gonna say I've noticed, and I drove through Bonham earlier. The size of our square is significantly bigger than most. Is that
absolutely?
How accurate is that?
I walked it off in McKinney, and of course now McKinney's done some.
It's funny because there's so much in McKinney
there.
that you think it's big, but it's not that big.
Absolutely,
it's tiny.
It's a little tiny square, but now McKinney's done some modifications over there, and they may be able to put as many as we can. But we have bricks. They don't. We don't have any signal lights. They do.
Right.
We've got our old buildings. They still got a lot of them. I don't want to be McKinney, but if you look at what they've done over there, they've done a pretty good job with dealing with what they had. And we've got it. They're coming.
That's
it's going to happen. And I tell you what, I think we've got a lot to work with here. I don't know exactly.
Solid foundation, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
There's only one building on the west side that isn't.
Yeah, one derelict building over there. Yeah, and that's I could tell you about that. Man, I mean,
the way this square is laid out, it just has so much potential for something like
it's
that.
incredible. And in the look at these other towns that have got like Wyrite, Celeste, one street, or Trenton or Farmersville's got a T.
Yeah.
We've got a square.
Yeah.
And plus. Look at the way the highway goes around this thing. You got highway frontage on two sides.
Yep.
A lot of these towns just have one. And so, I mean, things are going to happen out there on the highway as they should, and things are going to happen downtown as they should. And then once we get those going, then, I know our streets and our sewers and stuff need work, but you got to get those things going first.
Sure.
I mean, you
got to bring in the enterprise.
You do. Yep. And, man, I'd like to see, a restaurant on like McKinney's got, 3 or 4 on the square. I'd like to see 3 or 4 here.
Sure. They probably got 6.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, we restored the first museum building, and then we were fortunate enough to get the old city library. We restored that one, and we made that building with a future in mind. With 2 restrooms in there instead of 1. And then plus there's an area back in the back that could be a huge kitchen storage area, and then the seating in that building is just the amount of tables that can go in there is unreal. But now, I'd have trouble with the people I'm in with turning that into a restaurant or whatever. But if somebody came by and just had to have it, and if it meant something more for the town, we deal with it, you
Sure.
know. And so we were lead turning that when we restored that second building.
If they do, I hope it's Mexican food.
Man, you could have. I mean, just think about it. We've got a
pizza.
family restaurant over here.
Pizza.
Put a Papa
Tex-
John's in.
Tex-Mex on one side. You know, nobody does like steak country down in McKinney. That's all they did was steaks.
Oh.
You could do just steaks. That's
Oh,
it.
man.
Baked potatoes and salads. And
I think we've
people
had
would
that
drive for
conversation.
I think
miles
I've
around.
had that
Miles
conversation
around.
with a few people.
And maybe not only just steaks and potatoes, but then in season just a crawfish shack, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize like the growth is coming. That's going to happen. So we can't keep
Absolutely.
Leonard a small town forever. So how best do we retain the charm and the feeling of Leonard now for the future? You know, and that's kind of part of this. What we're doing with this podcast is trying to get some of the history on, and as people move in, get them, you know, aware of what it was. Sorry, I
Exactly.
got distracted.
We touched on it earlier. We ask all of our guests what your first memory of Leonard is, and I know is coming here with your family as a child. But what do you think is your first memory of Leonard?
First memory would be the trip around the town that we did after looking at the land. We looked at so much land, it sort of kind of blended together. But I do remember going around the square and Mother going, "Oh, look at that old courthouse." And, man, I sure wish we had that. I wish they hadn't torn it down.
Yeah,
wish we
that's the
had
one
our-
thing it's missing. To be quite honest, is
we
a
missed
pretty courthouse.
If think of this. If we had our old courthouse, if we had the hotel that burned,
Yeah.
and if we had the three-story high school, I mean, the place would be just about perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, yeah, we're a long way from perfect. I mean, I just wish that we had those three buildings.
You have some
and
relics there.
yeah, who's to say that somebody can't build them back? You know, I've always said that. It's like, okay, fine, let's build it back.
Now,
you know?
I went to a place in England where they made a 1/16 the size town. It was really weird,
Safety town,
but it was the whole town in miniature, 2-foot buildings.
Yeah.
But you could walk the whole town. It was really weird.
That's kind of cool though.
But hey, maybe that'll work.
This place is wide open. It's whatever you want to do. I mean, like I say, we've got there's some spots here on the square, you know, that are open. So somebody could come in and you know, put a old looking facade. We don't care what you do on the back side back there, all metal. It doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
But
Make it match is what you're saying.
Whatever you want to do. I don't think we'll ever have a car dealership downtown. That took up a lot of space in my time. That won't. I mean, if a car dealership comes here again, whether it be used cars or new, it'll be on the highway.
Yeah. What are
I mean,
the 5, 6, 7 maybe businesses you remember from your teenage high school years? Maybe 20s on the square.
On the square, Murphy Chevrolet
Yep.
and Mr. Crawford's shop over here.
Yep.
There's two. Of course, the bank, the drugstore, and that's 4. The downtown cafe
Yep.
was a happening place. That's the one over here on the south side that's all multicolor. Guys. It was in bad shape during the 70s. I mean, it looks great now compared to what it was like. There was a lot of burned out. There was one burned out building on the north side that stayed burned out for 10 years. Nobody even cleaned it up. It was really sad. The old theater.
Yep. The theater burned, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just left it. I mean, for years. It was.
Did you ever see a movie there? Was that before your time?
No, it was open,
Yeah.
and we just when we came up here. That was probably the farthest thing from my mind. You know, It was like we played or we were on the tractor till dark.
Right.
And then we came in and
Time to eat supper and go to bed.
ate, cleaned up, and went to bed and couldn't wait to get up in the morning and do it
What
again.
was the old City Hall building like? I think it was a little before my time.
It was one floor. The entire floor was post office, I believe, and they had one little room that was the was called City Hall, where the manager was. Mostly post office downstairs, and then there was an auditorium upstairs. The restrooms, I think, had been added to it, and from what I heard, you only went in there when you had to. It's really bad, and it stunk the whole building up.
Have they always kept the fire trucks and stuff at City
The
Hall?
fire trucks were there too. Yeah, it was a 2-bay, and it went out to the west.
Okay.
You can see the old driveway if you go over and look. It went right into that old building. I tell you, something that really is gone that I wish we still had that was, cotton went out in 74 when they dropped the subsidy. So everything you see now where the cows are, that was cotton. Now, these guys did raise some maize and did raise some wheat just to rotate, but mainly it was cotton because it was subsidized. I mean, I don't care like it failed last year, right? Okay. You still back then would have gotten a check for the acres that you planted, and you could raise a family on that. Families lived off the cotton that the farmers planted. They raised whole family. It wasn't just mom and pop stuff. I mean, they raised kids and everything on that. I don't remember anybody being without clothes or hunger or anything like that. The farmers' kids were okay. So I don't know what it paid. I have no idea, but it was certainly worth doing it. But when they dropped the subsidy, it was not. So, I mean, just like that. But anyway, the Davis Gin down here was a fascinating place. And I've got great memories of that. I was up here with my dad. I wrote about it in the History of Leonard. But I was up here. It was just he and I. I don't know why. It's just we came up for nobody else wanted to come, or there was something else going on at school or something. But Dad and I came up here. And we went out to Grill 69 on the highway to 8. And then I was probably 7 or 8. And he said, I want to show you this cotton gin. So we wheeled in over there, and this old tin building with a lot of activity around it, poorly lit, hanging incandescent lights on the inside and a few spotlights on the outside, but a lot of dust, a lot of noise, a lot of activity. And we wheeled in there, and we went inside, and it's like deafening in there. I mean, it's just the noise was just incredible. But there was some old guy, there were several men stationed throughout the gin that had various positions. And Dad went up to some old guy and said, hey, hollered at him, can you show him the gin? Show him the cotton gin. The guy goes, oh, yeah, okay, come on. So anyway, we took a tour. And guys, I mean, OSHA would just absolutely go nuts, spastic. I mean, there's belts and pulleys and I mean, all over the place. Yeah. It's just unreal. Catwalks. And when you walk by this stuff, you had room to really just squeeze by. Absolutely. It was just unreal. I've never seen so much mechanism in my life. And there was a huge, this gym was unique. There was most of them were electric. They had a big electric motor that turned the whole mechanism. This one had a 6-cylinder industrial inline, I believe it was a Pneumoline NH, absolutely huge engine that ran off of natural gas. It was natural gas fired. And you could hear that thing from the park all the way to the high school. That's how loud it was.
There's a lot of hearing loss in that place.
Everybody was deaf around that gin. I mean, just totally, it would deafen you. And the BILs, they'd grown up, they didn't hear it. But, for coming in 69, and we didn't have air till 74 in the high school. So, I mean, the windows were all open and everything. And this engine, guys, I kid you not, I mean, it had a,
This town's great, but that noise, what are you talking about?
Boom, 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 boom,
I
boom,
just
boom,
got-
boom, 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 boom. I mean, it was just this huge.
I just got a picture in my head of everybody doing their schoolwork, and you going, does anybody hear that? Like, does anybody hear that? And everybody's just kind of doing their work, and, you're looking around.
Well, I'll tell you what, they set us alphabetically. And so C and then D. So Danny Davis is always right next to me. So anyway, his dad owned the gin. So, and he worked down there. So anyway, he could tell, I mean, from the sound what was going on, he could tell what was going on down there.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, if the engine over revved or if the engine shut down,
Just stand up,
or,
go out of class.
Yeah, he just turned around and tell me what was going on. So I got an education on how to gin cotton without ever going down there. I mean, because he was going to tell me what was going on down there. So anyway,
Gin harmonics.
And then we would go down, and take his dad a hamburger and stuff, down there, and while it was operating, and then I got to make, for Mr. Crawford, I got to make gin runs, and that was always good to make a gin run instead of throwing it back in the trailer, and change out the trailers. But anyway, that was the heartbeat of the city. I mean, it really, everything, when you got a cotton economy, everything centered around that and those scales and that gin down there. And I mean, during gin season, it was the busiest thing you've ever seen in your life.
Of course,
then when they weren't, nothing was going on down there. But I mean, you just wouldn't believe how when the fall rolled around and it came gin time, it was a constant flow of cars, trucks pulling empty trailers, women pulling empty trailers, women pulling full trailers with the 4-door Chevy,
Sure.
and
a white trail.
Yeah,
Long
absolutely.
white trail.
Absolutely. Everything.
Cotton trail.
Everything went to the gin and everything. I mean, that was the center of the village from my years of 69 living here through 74. And
it's a different time now.
It really is. Absolutely.
We just hit an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah, look, you were worried
been
about
an hour
45.
already?
You didn't think you'd do it.
I thought you guys only gave me 20 minutes. What's going on
We
here?
told you 23 minutes.
didn't
That's
even
all
get
we
out-
can do is 23 minutes.
20 minutes. We're still out there on FM 272.
We're gonna have
man.
to have you back a few more times. I
Yeah,
think.
we would like to have you back.
Before we get into our questions here,
Yep.
I have one question I'd love to hear, and is that could you tell me a little bit about your first Leonard picnic and what it was like?
It was definitely when we still lived in Dallas, and we came up on the weekends and coming down the highway 69, and then to make the turn left to 272. It's like, what's this?
So
off
it was
to the
going
right?
on as you guys came in.
What's this off to the right over here? I believe I see some carnival stuff over here. So anyway, we would there was Mr. and Miss Grounds lived right next door, and they were elderly farmers, and we would always have to check in with them before we went to the next place, which was ours.
Sure.
Always. And I was so ready to get going. I wanted to get out and get on the tractor and this and that and where, and we'd have to go to the grounds. And finally, Dad just said, well, why don't you just go on? Here's the keys. But anyway, we got caught up on Leonard every week by talking to Mr. and Miss Grounds. So
Sure.
if the picnic was in town, it's like, hey, it's picnic. Y'all hit this one, right? So anyway, yeah, we couldn't wait to get up there. And you're going to hear it from everybody my age. It rivaled the county fairs. I mean, you go to the county fairs, and it was the same thing. They had that Albright guy, Yachty, whatever his name was. He was a carny. And he was.
I kind of gathered that from our past conversations.
He knew those people, and he could get shows over here like you wouldn't believe.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know how he did it, but he just knew them. And the bigger the show, the more people it would draw. People would come from miles around.
Yeah.
And I just remember James Jones lived right around the corner, good friend of mine. In my class, we played together when we came up here. We would ride something, throw up, and then I can show you take you right down there to the cedar elm tree that I threw up
After the tilt-a-whirl.
Yeah, and then go. I think I can do it now, and so we get back on the.
That's funny.
The racetrack, you mentioned the track.
Yeah, the racetrack
yeah.
south of Leonard. I heard
There
something
was
about it.
I was
Dirt
up here
track.
with it was Granddad and I, just us this time, and if there was a car coming this way, I was in it, trust me. And the others sometimes had other functions, but man, this was my thing. It's coming up here, and Granddad and I came up, and I saw a bunch of signs approaching town about the race. And I remember seeing the dirt track cars at the building on the other side of the Crawford Garage. Poop Edwards, E.L. Edwards would work on the stock cars. And so anyway, they'd be all around there and the hoods up and stuff, and guys working on them. And so we passed by that, and then we'd go do our thing, and then we'd go to the Grill 69, and there would be a flyer, of the race. So I said, Granddad, I want to go to this race. It's like, all right, we'll go to the race. I said, come on, Granddad, let's go to this race. So I remember going out there one night. I only got to go once. And
This was out near Lee Cemetery?
Yeah,
Okay.
Lee Station, yeah,
Okay.
it was. And I remember following the cars out there, and, you got on the white chalk road, and it was very dusty. It was in the summer.
You believe this?
And I remember Granddad complaining about, well, this is way out here, and this and that or whatever. And finally, I remember him saying one time, he said, Steve, we always have to do what you want to do. Always have to do what
Are you
you
sure you didn't ride out there with my granddad?
Yeah, sounds like
Sounds a lot like
He
him.
was complaining about it, and I don't blame him. But anyway, and then he complained about how much it cost to get in there. So we went in there and parked, and sure enough, watched the cars go around, and I was just absolutely just blown away by the dirt and the sound. And these
What was
guys
the place
were,
called?
It's just the Leonard racetrack.
What's it going to take to bring that back?
Yeah, right.
Can we have that?
Yeah, I think you can find some of the embankment is still out there.
Wow.
Really?
I would have to search, but I've heard it's still out there.
I think
Next year, guys, you want to get that together?
Now, is that on the Gills land?
I think it was prior to the Gills.
Is it on that land that where they live?
I don't think so.
I think there's
somebody. We had this conversation a while back, and somebody told me, he said, "Well, you remember where so and so lived?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, it was right, sort of, kind of a little bit south of their house and off to the right." And I said, "Well, that checks." But I can't remember I can't remember the old couple that somebody we just had this conversation.
I think that needs to be a siren scavenger hunt.
How many people are showing up on a Saturday night?
I'd say there's probably 20 race cars and probably 100
cool.
spectators.
No
Maybe
way.
even
This
more.
is
That's a big
amazing.
deal.
I should have
There
known.
was cars all over the place.
Now,
man.
I heard it might have sparked some dirt track racing around the area, like other tracks.
Wow.
This is the only one I knew of.
Okay.
I should have
I'm
known
sure
that
every
Poop
little
would have been
town-
involved with that.
Every little town had one,
Yeah.
I believe. It's just the times.
Yeah.
And there was always old cars and stuff that you could work on, take an old four-door and soup it up,
Sure.
for buy it a little bit of nothing. And like I talked about Dennis Jones and I and the other guys modifying engines or whatever. I mean, that's what guys did.
Yeah.
And, of course, they were interested in speed and power and stuff back then. But anyway, they were out of control the whole time. They would water the track down to keep the dust down. And then the guys were sliding the whole time. It was who could manage the out of control situation the best. And of course, the PA system, they hyped it up. And the girls would go out there with the shorts on and hand out trophies and stuff.
Cool.
It didn't get any better than that. And a teenage kid, I'm like,
Yeah, I bet.
Granddad's
I'm
over
so
there.
jealous of this.
Actually, he kind of got into it,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Once we'd been there a little while, but I'm glad that I got the experience.
That's pretty cool.
To go out there.
That's very cool.
Wow. That's amazing. I have
like
to know more about that. I want this to happen again.
Yeah. I might have some information on it coming.
Wow.
I've been doing some
I should have
research
known when
into
you Matthew brought this up to me, and it's new to me, but I should have known that Poop Edwards was involved if there were any kind of racing around here.
it.
Yeah.
He was. I don't know. I remember seeing him. I never did any work with him because mainly I was over here with the Crawfords. But he was a gifted mechanic.
Oh, yeah.
He
Yeah.
really was.
I've heard that
I'm
my
telling
entire
you
life.
Something. I mean,
Was it him you were telling that he could hear an engine?
Yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, Dad was putting a motor in his truck, and Poop come out there, and they were having trouble getting it going. And he said, "Well, turn it over." And he hit the key once. He said, "Stop! Those rockers are too tight on this side." So sure enough, it fired right up.
Wow.
He had a way.
Yeah.
Those guys are gone. I mean, he was a giant and a legend around here.
Well, we have some questions that we get in with everybody. Five questions.
5 random questions that are easy to answer.
These
Go
are
ahead on,
actually
go ahead on.
random. All right. So, who is the most famous person you have met or talked to or exchanged handshakes? If you could think about it, the most famous
Leonard
person.
or just anywhere?
Famous
Anywhere.
person ever in the world.
Probably Herb Kelleher.
Say that again?
Yeah,
Probably Herb Kelleher.
Herb Southwest.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty famous.
Okay.
He just passed away
Yeah.
not long ago.
Yeah.
Go for it, Jason.
You got time for Herb's story?
Sure.
Absolutely.
I'll be real quick. This is how he was with us. I was a new captain. He was riding the jump seat, and we get out to Phoenix, and there was there wasn't anything going on. I mean, it was just weird. It was one of those days where you roll in there, and it's like, it's between banks, nothing going on. So I think we'd come from El Paso, and when Herb was in your jump seat or on the plane, this entourage always met at the gate, and people came out of the woodwork that you never saw, that you have no idea how many people work at these stations until the boss shows up. So anyway, the gate was here, and I mean, there was people on the ramp. There was people hanging out the stairs. The jetway was full. So I said, "Watch this, Herb. I'm gonna mess with them." So there's another 2 jetways down here. So I come taxiing by. Back then it was taxi to the gate.
Sure.
You do whatever you want to do. So I taxied by the gate. And I mean, there's these hands flapping, and people are running down the stairs. People are running out onto the tarmac and stuff, doing it. No, over here, this and that or whatever. So anyway, I wheeled back around or whatever, and then came in, and then we're all laughing, so they know that we were messing with them or whatever. So anyway,
Why is he on the jump seat?
So anyway, he's
Why is he in the jump seat?
Yeah, it's full.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
he just right up front.
What a good guy.
Sit there and
What
smoke
a good
cigarettes.
guy.
And
And
smoke cigarettes.
He's helping
Oh,
us. He's helping us non-rev guys
yeah,
out.
It was great. He's always, it was fun to have him up there, man. It's great. But anyway, I come wheeling in there, and whatever, we do the checklist or whatever, and he's roaring back there laughing at this whole thing. And so anyway, when it's all said and done, I say, hey, sir, Herb, this was fun or whatever. And he goes, I'm going to have to write you two assholes up. He has that big laugh. Looked over, he had a cigarette in his mouth, and the ash was curled and hanging about his head. What good times, man. It was a great boss, great guy to work for.
That's fun.
That's a good herb story there.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Alrighty, question number 2. What is the tallest building that you've been to the top of?
Empire State.
All right. That's a good
That,
one.
that would do it.
That will too.
I concur with that one.
Scott Carey went to the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, or whatever, UAE. Okay, so best
Ted Butler did too.
and the
I think.
worst job you've ever had.
The best job I ever had and the worst I ever had?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Both of them.
the best was flying the Thunder Chief at Carswell.
Sounds good. I'll take that.
That was short-lived. I mean, it was too good to be true, so it was short-lived. The worst job I ever had.
Flying the F-16.
No, my goodness, guys, I haven't had a bad job. Probably throwing back the cotton in the trailer,
Sure.
if you really look at it, was absolutely the worst job. That
Checks all the
I'm
boxes.
surprised you didn't say it quicker.
Yeah.
it was. It wasn't any fun back there. It really wasn't. I mean,
Sure.
it was nasty, dirty, filthy work. A lot of dust came out of that thing.
Oh, yeah.
And you really had to be careful because the chute, you're turned around and that chute's doing this sometimes.
Sure.
Sucker would whack you in the back of the head. Something fierce, that happened several times.
I'll accept
And
that
then
as well.
Many times we'd be going through the field and you could get moving.
Sure.
I mean, you really could. And then all of a sudden there'd be a washout type thing that he couldn't clutch it and get on the brake because guess what? That
Yeah.
would throw me out. So you had to, I'd hear him clutch it, go down on the throttle. And I knew then that we're fixing to go
Brace.
for a ride.
Yeah.
And man, we'd go through that, and first of all, the tractor would bounce, and then the stripper would bounce, and then I would bounce. So I was ready for it, but a lot of times when you're up at the top, you haven't got anything to grab onto.
Yeah.
So I never did fall out or get ejected or anything, but close.
Right.
Close.
Wow.
That was a pretty bad job. Yeah.
Jason.
In your life, what are you most thankful for?
Most thankful for my parents.
Yep. That's a good one.
Yeah. For
Can't argue with that.
just the way that who they were, first of all, and the way that they raised all three of us, and the example that they set.
Sure.
They weren't perfect people, but boy, they did a fantastic job. They really did, as being mom and dad to the three of us.
Sure.
All three of us have said we had the best growing up of any kids that we know of.
Right. Well,
That's something to be said for that.
Yeah,
on
it
the
really
heels
is.
of that question, these were randomly drawn, but this is a good one as a
Follow
companion
it
to
up.
that one. Yeah. Besides children and marriage, what's your proudest moment?
Is it this?
Yeah, you have found it.
Probably when I soloed
Buzzing the
when I
flight
soloed-
tower.
When I soloed the Thunder Chief.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Wow.
Yeah.
After 3.5 years of maintenance, and then we talked about the officer school and the flight school, and all those guys. See, when I went up in that thing, that wasn't just me.
Sure.
That was every. You know how many guys
Touch that
wanted
thing.
to fly that thing and
Right.
never got to, and I was representing every maintenance man that I worked with,
Sure.
and every maintenance man that had ever worked on that thing. I mean, especially the guys that I knew as the crew chiefs that raised me over there
Sure.
and mentored me in that job, which I could talk about all day long. But it wasn't just me out there doing that. I mean, if I'd have gone up and messed things up, which you could do,
Easily.
very easily, and we
You
had
have a
some
heightened
guys. We had some
appreciation for
guys.
it.
That's one thing you just didn't do is be in the airplane. I mean, you just
Sure.
didn't do it, and we had some guys do that. And but anyway, yeah, I believe that was. And unfortunately, there wasn't anybody there to see it except my crew chiefs.
Sure.
That's it. You know, the pilots. I go, oh, this is another thing. I think it
You didn't
really
stick a
sort of
GoPro on the window or anything?
It's sort of. It would have been nice.
It would have been
You know,
this big.
I tell you what, and that's we talked about that being such a wonderful thing. One of the now that Facebook's around, one of the worst things of life of my career was the fact that we were denied photography on the flight line. I have so few pictures of that, and yeah, I have some pictures, and they're precious. But if I had been able to take my camera out there, there'd have been thousands.
Oh, geez,
and
yeah.
on the flight line of my guys that I work with. Now, I did take it to beside the runway, you know, the RSU or
Sure.
Mobilee or whatever. I got to do that a lot, and I got it all clear. See, that was a Strategic Air Command base, tankers and bombers. We were just a tenant unit.
Right.
And you had to ask them permission to do anything. And there were days that I went to mobile out there. It's like, I'm going to take my camera and take pictures of the airplanes taking off and landing. Ours, not yours.
Right.
Okay, have fun. And then there were other days it's like, oh, no, not today, man.
Yeah.
I got a colonel over here, and I got an inspection team over here, and this colonel's a butt, and this. Okay, hey, I get it.
Sure.
My dad's got shoe boxes full of sitting at the airport taking pictures of airplanes.
Well,
I love their dorky pictures. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody cares about whatever it was, but
Oh, but
it's
they
pretty
mean
cool
the world
stuff.
to
Oh
us.
yeah, absolutely.
And all my crew chiefs, you know, I'd love to have had a. See, they were assigned an airplane.
He'll
And
know the name of
one
every
of
one of
them picks one of them beside their airplane would have been great, but
Sure.
they don't exist. I mean, they really don't because. You know, it's just no photography, and the people that were allowed to do it didn't do it unless they were told to do it, and nobody told them to do it. And I showed up over as a lieutenant. It's like, why aren't the cameras running around here? Why aren't the VCR cameras? This is the last days of this. Why are we not documenting this?
Sure.
And sure enough, on Facebook now, where we can play it back and share it with everybody, it doesn't exist. Now we do have some things, and I've even got some video that nobody else does. Somebody shot some VCR stuff of a flyby, 24-ship flyby, and landing and all that stuff. It's very popular, but nobody else ever did it. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, that's a good answer. I'll accept that as well.
yeah,
If you're willing, we're going to have you back, I think.
yeah.
glad
maybe
to.
a few
We'll
times.
have to have you back and
Be glad to.
pick your brain some more.
We got a lot
I got,
more
you know,
topics to get to.
Yeah, I'm just winded. What can I say?
Well,
I'm just full of wind.
We thank you very much for taking your time to come down here and talk to us, and for all you do for the town. And I know you're very influential and very popular around here with everybody, sharing your stories and just giving us one of your evenings here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I had a blast.
Thank
it was a lot
you.
of fun.
Thanks, Steve.
Let's do it again.